Tell me my shit.
Whoa.
Yo.
That's what happens when he clicks over.
No, that was a different thing.
Mm.
That's what happens when I restart my fucking sound engine and my speakers are the default connected device.
Like we'll never know what happens now on the floor. We'll never know what's said in the debates that was being broadcasted live.
Oh,
They
so
made
they
it,
just
like I said,
continue
they
with
made
all
it to
that?
the first fucking one, dude. Yeah, they're about to continue throughout the
That's what I
night.
heard,
Pelosi already said they are. So Pence said everybody, yeah, they're going to
people
continue.
are gonna get their say now. The people, we're gonna get back to the people's business.
Right. Right.
You'll
We
never
don't give
know
a
what's
fuck.
going on. We don't know what's going on anymore. And like I said, even if Antifa was part of it, the people who are dumb enough to fucking, get cooed into that dumb shit are part of the fucking problem too. Like, if you're stupid enough to follow Antifa into a building knowing that they're doing dumb shit, then you're fucking part of the problem too.
I would have went in there to look for the tunnels.
I would have, the smart thing would have been, like, go down there, march, you stay outside, you stay behind the barriers, you chant, you hold your signs, and you don't do any of that dumb shit, dog. Because now, what did it do? It didn't accomplish anything. And even if, like I said, if Antifa goes in, then there's only a few of them. You can spot all them, and then you point those guys out. A lot of these Trump supporters are ex-military, ex-police officers, you know what I'm saying? Like, people that shouldn't, that would be able to grab one of these motherfuckers and be like, yo, this is Antifa dude. Let's lock this, grab him that. Don't let him do that. Saying, don't let this fool break the window. I think we've all seen videos of Antifa fucks. They look like a bunch of pussies. To get cooed into that shows ignorance as well. But it's done, dude. Trump's, I mean...
What the fuck are you watching?
An ad.
Okay, good. I was like, what the fuck is that, dude? That pissed me off. Whatever that is bullshit. It's like, it's an ad. Oh, yeah, yeah. That's how I say.
They talk about that girl.
Oh, Super Jew
Who shot him?
Schumer.
The police, no?
One Secret Service, guys. 4 dudes, 2 on either side of a double door that had opaque windows. You couldn't see through it. One of them let loose a round.
Yeah, that didn't make sense at all. That video from the perspective behind her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, where the fuck did the bullet come from?
If they had, yeah, I had to watch it like 5 times to figure out where the bullet came from.
Yeah,
and who
me
it was
too.
getting shot exactly. And I was like, why would you
Jake
shoot
was like,
through
it
before
came
they
through the
breached
window, and I was like, what?
Yeah, yeah, it was like
That's
it came
exactly
through.
what they did. They shot through the...
The other weird thing is the bullet hole on the glass
door.
is really low, like compared to where she got hit. That's the other weird thing. But anyway, I don't want to talk about that. That makes me feel weird.
I haven't seen her get hit. I just saw her down holding it.
Oh, there's a video where the video of where she gets hit.
Domestic terrorist. There we are.
There were a few thousand violent extremists who tried to take over the Capitol building and attack our democracy. They must and should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Okay.
Hopefully by this administration, if not, certainly by the next. They should be.
It's a long time to wait, Schumer.
What'd he say?
He said they should be prosecuted by this administration or the next.
Oh, anybody that was doing dumb shit?
Yeah, I mean,
Of course.
you think anyone will remember in 4 years?
What's the point of even saying that?
Yeah, everybody's gonna remember this shit forever, dude.
He's probably talking about the Trump administration and the Biden one.
Yeah, no.
Leader McCarthy and myself who came together and decided that these thugs would not succeed. That we would finish the work of our country.
We came together.
Melania's
Faggot.
chief of staff or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Surrounded by swamp rats, dog.
But we know always belong to the people.
Feel bad for that family, man.
Tonight,
So how could you feel bad for them?
make no mistake, my friends. Today's events did not happen spontaneously.
Mitch
You shit on
McConnell,
everywhere, man.
Congress will certify Biden's win tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure they are. No doubt in my mind they're doing that.
Yeah, they can't afford for it to go another day.
He hardly ever discourages violence, more often encourages it. This president bears a great deal of the blame. This mob was in good part President Trump's doing, incited by his words, lies. This violence in good
Feels
part
like they're incited by your lies, Chucky.
responsibility is everlasting shame. Today's events certainly would not have happened without him.
Certainly. Yeah.
January
No,
6th,
none of these events would have happened without him, you fucking idiot.
recent American history. A final warning to our nation
Yeah.
about the
You gonna
consequences
warn me,
of a
huh?
demagogic president.
He's
Gonna
speaking
go
live right now?
Yeah.
They let him out?
Media that
Oh, he's in this. I got the feed up from the
He's
floor.
in the bunker or what? Are
No.
they in the...
We're on the center floor.
They're back on the floor?
Yeah, right side broadcasting news. On YouTube.
As we reconvene tonight, let us remember, in the end, all this mob has really accomplished is to delay our work by a few hours. We will resume our responsibilities.
That's fucking dumb.
The House and Senate chambers will be restored good as new.
So they're all back on the House floor?
Yeah.
The electoral votes is our sacred duty. Democracy's roots in this nation are deep. They're strong.
Are they broadcasting the vote live? Or I wonder.
Yeah, that's what it appears so.
Thugs.
That's fucking nuts. I thought for sure they wouldn't
Me
do
too.
that.
For centuries. So to my fellow Americans, who were
I
shocked
mean, if you
Chucky
don't,
Chuck.
they probably thought
televisions
if you
today,
don't, it gets even worse. You know, that people come back in and attack again.
let me speak to you directly.
Oh, well. Okay.
Divisions in our country clearly run deep. But we are a resilient, forward-looking, and optimistic people. And we will begin the hard work of repairing this nation tonight. What actually happened? And because in America, we do hard things.
Overcome.
In America, we always overcome our challenges.
Eat a dick, Schumer.
Wow.
Majority Leader Oklahoma say something like, "Why in God's name someone think attacking law enforcement and occupying the United States Capitol is the best way to show that you're right?"
That's on MSNBC. That's on the floor. Are they ahead or something?
We disagree on
Langford's talking.
Yeah, like 3 seconds or 5 seconds ahead of me.
a spirited debate in this room.
It's well, I've been switching it.
And we honor
Rioters and thugs don't run the Capitol. We're the United States of America.
Mute your shit.
I got the best shit.
We
though.
disagree on a lot of things, and we have a lot.
Do, but I don't want to hear an echo.
Yeah, but it
See
sounds
me
better.
muting my shit?
It even sounds better for you because you have headphones on.
It's true, it does sound cleaner, but
Even in our disagreement,
I'm muting my shit so I can watch it live.
Well, that doesn't work because then I have
Very
to play
strongly at times.
it. And then you're gonna hear it.
We do.
It's better if you just play it.
what happened today. Ever. I want to join my fellow senators in saying thank you to the Capitol Hill Police, the law enforcement, the National Guard, the Secret Service, who stood in harm's way while we were here debating. They were pushing back. Mid-sentence speaking here because we were all unaware of what was happening.
Needed a little
Because of
false
their
flag.
faithfulness, and because of what they have done. And I want to thank you. Ronald Reagan once said,
No, yeah, invoke Reagan.
peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means. Peaceful people in my state in Oklahoma. They want to do
Told you this is gonna happen.
Doesn't take much to stand out there on that ledge, right, and say that they're gonna fuck you. I mean, that's not really going out on a limb.
That my
I appreciate you telling me that's what was going to happen, but I mean,
Tried to convince me otherwise.
I didn't try to
so it's
convince
like,
you anything.
You was like, yo,
Never
this
tried to
is-
convince you of
nah,
anything.
This is you told me Wednesday he's getting reelected. I said, no, he's not. This is exactly what happened. They, like, and then he gassed up a crowd, and even if Antifa was part of it, they, you know, the crowd that he gassed up fell for it.
At this moment in history, I can think of nothing.
They all look dumb now.
Than renewing our faith in the charters of freedom that our founding.
Look how they're using
Wants
all
Biden
this.
to be president.
Look how they're using this.
With the fundamental American principle in our Declaration of Independence.
They're gonna try to use everything today against it. It's all a setup, man. Stupid. Here we go.
And our only job here today is to do what they ask. It is not to argue election security.
Well, that's because you don't read the Constitution or know the Constitution.
What we are doing today.
It's okay. She's just a politician. It's just her job.
The right to meet in their respective states and vote for the president and vice president.
I carry one around with me 24/7.
Individual states oversee and implement the election process, not the federal government.
That's
Well, the pocket Constitution is in both my work truck and my personal truck. I think it's important to know the law, to know your rights. I think all of our politicians should have to know the Constitution before they're elected, or even run, for that matter.
Don't disagree, but
How do we go about changing that, though? How can we...
Constitution hasn't really been relevant since they let black people vote, bro.
After the 2020 election. State houses and courts across the country took allegations of voter fraud seriously and followed the constitutional process to hear challenges to this year's elections.
I mean, we should absolutely
found evidence of
And
remove women's suffrage.
Non-landowners as well.
End women's suffrage, for sure.
State's findings in Arizona.
Only landowners should be
Yeah.
able to vote on the government. That's pretty straightforward.
Democratic Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, Republican
I
Attorney
mean-
General Mark Brnovich,
That's where a
and
lot of this
State
stems
Supreme
from with
Court
democracy,
Chief Justice
being
Robert
gay and shit.
Rubino all certify the results of the election on November 30th.
I mean, it's not a bad idea, Fly.
It pretty much solves it, dude. Like, which is how it was made, which is in the Constitution originally, which is how America was founded on.
Numerous times in
You
November,
know?
The problem was that black people couldn't own land, so that's how that was the workaround the
now
black
it's
vote.
like, yeah, everyone can own land.
so
Just
much, he further stated,
You have to own
we have
land.
some of the strongest election laws in the country. Laws that prioritize accountability and clearly lay out our procedures for conducting, canvassing, and even contesting the results. And they are right.
I mean, if you ain't got no skin in the game, what the fuck you playing for?
Election processes
Get out the way for those that do. I feel you, Fly.
starting
You ain't got no skin in this game, right?
You're just voting for
No
yourself.
skin in the game. You should get the fuck out the... Right? Right.
Arizona and elsewhere,
Oh, you think Biden should be president? Yeah?
or
You own some land?
properly rejected ballots
In this great country? No. Shut the fuck up. You ain't got no skin in the game.
allegations all
Ain't got nothing to lose.
that Arizona counties
I mean...
conducted
I'm also for
ballot
immigration
ballots
moratoriums.
by hand.
Which is also how the country did immigration for hundreds of years before.
You mean just stopping it completely?
Yeah, for like a few years, every once in a while, so people could assimilate.
I mean, we did that. We did that for a
But they
few
did
years in
for
the
years and years, dude.
in the early 1900s and in the 40s. We stopped immigration completely.
Count audit in the week after the election.
Yeah, but even
Showed
in
perfect
1700s, 1800s, it was the norm.
accuracy in the machine tabulation. So why would we need, my colleagues,
So Fly,
What up, Stu?
I done a thing today.
What's that?
I fucking applied to go back to school.
Oh no! School for what? What are you gonna go to
Heavy
school
equipment
for?
operator.
Oh, nice.
That's
What is
so
it?
rich that Democrats are talking about state rights, by the way. I'm sorry, Stu. Congratulations, my bad. That was rude, and
I
what
know.
you do to me 24/7, so you deserve it. Carry on.
No
Yeah.
big deal. No big deal. I don't care.
It wasn't designed. It wasn't a plan. It just happened.
How long?
No,
is
you
it?
gotta
Sorry
get,
about
that had to get out there.
How long is it? What's the time commitment on it?
22 weeks.
22 weeks and full-time school?
No, some of it is like driving trucks and that too.
Yeah, but I mean, like, is it 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? Type thing, or roughly, or?
I would, yeah, roughly.
Like 40 hours type of week of class or whatever
And this
type
too,
thing?
No,
Or is it like 2
yeah,
days?
for the first little while, and then it'd be like probably like 2 or 3 days of just work, and then like
yeah?
driving the trucks.
And then what about a job? Do they hook you up with a job?
I don't know, but I'll get a job.
What kind of heavy machinery?
Dump truck,
Dump truck?
excavator, dump truck, excavator,
Like all size
and
excavators?
front end loader. Yeah.
Nice. Dude, that's dope.
Yep. Hopefully I get accepted and I get the funding.
Those guys do really well, man. They make really good money. You gotta be really
Let's see
good
what
though.
this
You
guy
gotta have a
says.
steady hand. This is fat fuck. What's this guy's name? Who's this low T looking ass motherfucker with high cortisol levels and whatnot?
Mike Lee, Senator Utah.
He's Republican, no?
He is.
My heartfelt gratitude goes out to the
In name?
police who valiantly
Yeah,
defended our building and our lives.
He used to be a positive
Legitimate concerns have
but
been
now he's more like a wishy-washy kind of guy. You never know where he's at.
how some of the key battleground states conducted their presidential elections. This is not the end of the story. We each have to remember that we've sworn an oath to uphold, protect, and defend this document. Written nearly
Hey, look, I got one. That's what we were just talking about. Pocket Constitution.
raised up by God to that very purpose. That document makes clear what our role is and what it isn't. It makes clear who does what when it comes to deciding presidential elections. You see, because in our system of government, presidents are not directly elected. They're chosen by presidential electors. The Constitution makes very clear under Article 2, Section 1, that the states shall appoint presidential electors according to procedures that their legislatures develop.
End of conversation.
Then comes the 12th Amendment. It explains what we're doing here today in the Capitol. It explains that the President of the Senate, the Vice President
Is the
of the
point
United
of them
States,
talking that somebody's gonna make a
open
point
the
that like everything's
ballots,
like
and
record
the votes
scratch?
shall
Oh, we
then
need to
be
look into
counted.
this.
It's those words that confine,
Like they're just
define,
giving speeches for
I
no
hope-
reason.
every scrap of authority that we have in this
Yeah,
process.
for 2 hours over each
Our job
state
is to
that is
open
contested.
And then count. Open, then count. That's
2 hour
it.
2 hour
That's
debate.
all there is.
Could have sworn they were supposed to be in separate rooms though.
Rare instances.
Is Trump even
Instances
there?
in
He's not
which,
even there.
Multiple slates of electors
not a
can be
part of the
submitted by the
Congress.
same
Where he's
state.
at?
That
What's he
doesn't
up to?
happen very often. In the 1960s,
I don't know that he can be there.
In 1876, I hope it doesn't ever happen again. In those rare moments, Congress has to make a choice. It has to decide which of the electoral votes will be counted and which will not. That did not happen here. Thank heavens. And let's hope that it never does.
See, what he just said is Mike Pence, and he looked up at him when he said it. Please rule on this. Don't leave this up to us to vote for. I don't want to have to be exposed.
I've spent an enormous time on this issue over the last few weeks. I've met with lawyers on both sides of the issue. I've met with lawyers representing the Trump campaign, reading everything I could find about the constitutional provisions in question. And I've spent a lot of time on the phone with legislators and other leaders from the contested states. I didn't initially declare my position because I didn't yet have one. I wanted to get the facts first, and I wanted to understand what was happening. I wanted to give the people serving in government in the contested states the opportunity to do whatever they felt they needed to do to make sure that their election was properly reflected. I spent an enormous amount of time reaching out to state government officials.
I wish you would hurry the fuck up.
In none of the contested states, no, not even
Well, they're
one,
filling the time and wasting the time with this
did
nonsense.
I discover any indication that there was any chance that any state legislature or secretary of state or governor or lieutenant governor had any intention to alter the slate of electors. That being the case, our job is
a very simple one.
Wow. You lying ass
This simply
motherfucker.
isn't how our federal system is supposed to work.
That is incredible. the Pennsylvania legislatures just published last night. We want you to send it back to us for 10. Give us 10 days, Mike Pence. Don't certify our election.
Appropriate responses to approach your state legislature. First and foremost, these protests from hearing from those who have raised concerns. They should have been focused on their state capitals, not their nation's capital. Because our role
Packettle.
is
He was
narrow.
gonna say Packettle.
Our role is defined. Our role is limited. Yes, we are the election judges when it comes to members elected to our own body. And yes, the House of Representatives, they're the judges of their own races there. We also have the authority to prescribe, as a Congress, rules governing the time, place, and manner of elections for senators and representatives. There is no corresponding authority with respect to presidential elections. None whatsoever. It doesn't exist. Our job is to convene, to open the ballots, and to count them. That's it. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Democratic leader.
Colorado, Mr. Bennett.
Senator from Colorado.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, it's been a terrible day for everybody here. And,
talking to the mask thing is just fucking hilarious.
So stupid, man.
That's got to be part of the joke, dude.
when I'm on this
I tweeted. I said I think I took too much acid in 2013. This is part of a horrible trip that's gone horribly wrong.
Oh yeah,
He's so crazy.
He's
actually knew
Everything I see is just tripping me out more and more.
know our history. But I was thinking about that history today as we saw the mob riot in Washington, D.C., thinking about what the founders were thinking about when they wrote our Constitution, which was what happened to the Roman Republic.
This guy breathes in pretty hardcore. He almost sucks his whole mask into his mouth like some sort of alien.
He eats it, motherfucker.
Yeah, he's chewing on it.
Ballots for consuls, for praetors, for senators. These were the offices in Rome. And these armed gangs ran through the streets of Rome,
This is
keeping elections
TJ's government representative.
keeping elections from ever
Right
being called.
here.
And in the end, because of that, the Roman Republic fell and a dictator took its place.
That's not accurate.
And that was the end of the Roman Republic, or any republic for that matter, until this beautiful Constitution was written in the United
You
States.
guys don't give a fuck about that.
So it is my hope that the way that we respond to this today, my dear colleague, is that we give the biggest bipartisan vote we
My
can
dear colleagues.
support of our democracy.
Sounds like he's fucking having a stroke there.
He's sucking on his mask, dude. It's
Today
weird.
and what the Roman Republic saw in its own time. There's a tendency around this place, I think, to always believe that we're the first people to confront something when that's seldom the case, and to underappreciate what the effect of our actions will be.
The other thing is just like, you know what I mean, all prepared
We need to
speeches.
deeply appreciate in this moment our obligation to the Constitution, our obligation
Well, a
to
lot of
the
those
democracy,
speeches probably
our
changed the moment,
obligation
you know, they had to be
to the
evacuated.
You're assuming that a lot of those people reading those speeches didn't know that that was already going to happen.
Yeah, that's what
You're assuming that they did.
I am.
We can all assume whatever we want to assume, you know what I'm saying? That's your opinion, you know what I'm saying? Just like you always tell me, that's your opinion. My opinion is a lot of them probably didn't know that that was going to happen.
Except in very rare circumstances.
Just like you're assuming Trump did or didn't know Antifa was going to be there.
Of Texas was talking about.
No, he said they would be there.
Today. And that's
So he
the
just
law that's leading
forgot
us
it in
to
his
the
speech today on live in front of everybody.
No, it's similar to the whole thing of how he has to denounce the KKK. How many times does he have to do
No,
it, bud?
that's not similar,
No,
Bill.
it's very
That's not.
similar. It's extremely similar.
Bro, when you stand in front of a fucking crowd
I
and
understand
gas
what you're
them
saying.
up and you don't tell that's
He could have
that's
ended his
ignorant.
speech with, "Hey, let's be safe out there today, guys. So, no violence. Let's be nice." He could have
No,
said
he,
that. He could have said
he
that.
could have said, "Hey,
We don't know if he did
Antifa
say that or
might
not.
be
I didn't
jack-
watch the whole
hijack-
thing. I
I
couldn't
watched
watch
it.
the
I
whole
was
thing.
there watching it. I did.
I ended up
And I
turning
can
it off the
tell
last
you,
like 10 minutes.
all he had to do was just literally tell them, "Don't let Antifa people hijack our protests."
Right.
The
Yeah, but why did they
This
open the
isn't
gates
like,
and let
hey,
them in?
Go out there and tell them
they didn't. I watched the video, the one Bill sent to me. They didn't.
So how,
They didn't.
I don't know.
Another
You
one
can
would
sit there and
agree
tell me
to
they
disagree.
did. They didn't. I watched them. I watched it. I've got multiple videos I can send to you that they didn't. There's one this lady's just like from a better angle from a whole thing. They didn't. People were pushing on the gates and everything else. Now the cops were pussies about it and didn't fight back hard enough. They didn't open the gates and let everybody come in.
I wonder how they figured 5 people and a metal rod was going to keep back 1 million.
Was found. So now we
They were hoping it was peaceful. Just like everybody's been talking about the Trump people are peaceful, right? You thought they weren't, you know?
I mean, can't shit on people for
Like
very
I said,
long and then expect them
you're
not
just
to
telling
fight
me like
back,
he
man.
shouldn't, just like he shouldn't tell them, hey, don't let Antifa hijack our protest. You're telling me he shouldn't have to do that. He's the president, dude, and he's literally rallying up the troops and fucking getting them all hyped up. And then you tell them to go down there, and you tell them to march down to the Capitol, and then you don't tell them that there could be people that could be fucking stirring up the trouble. Don't get caught in that. You tell me he doesn't do that? He's the smart guy you guys are telling me he is. That he knows everything. This is part of his plan. His plan's falling to shit then.
Agreed.
His plan fell completely apart then.
I just think that they should storm the Capitol again right now, currently, and stop this mess too.
It's
Fuck,
too
you
late
did
for
it
that.
once. You did it once. Fucking do it again.
That's not even gonna happen though.
I know, but wouldn't it be cool if we watched it all on here live? Because I was watching it live when they stormed the Capitol and they stopped and there was a big commotion and they didn't know what hell was happening. And I was like, what's going on? A Republican was giving a speech about how he was challenging the results, and he even stopped and he said, "Mr. President, can we have order in this thing? Will you call for order?" He kept calling for order, gaveling, and everyone was running around. People were running out the doors.
When I arrived in Washington this morning, I fully intended to object to the certification of electoral votes.
Here we go.
However, the events
Here we go.
that transpired today forced me to
This is
resign,
Kelly Loeffler.
and I cannot now in good
Oh
conscience
my
object to the
God.
certification of these electors. The violence, the lawlessness,
The dude just went to
You
bat for her
can't
last
tell me
night.
that's
of
not
Congress are
fucking
abhorrent
planned.
It's all
and
staged, bro.
direct attack
It's
on
all
the very
planned.
institution
Tell
Dude
me
went to
that's
bat
not
for her
legit
last
now, dude.
night and all day today.
of the American democratic process.
So he knew about that? He knew that was going to happen?
Law enforcement for keeping
See what I'm
No, I
saying?
think
This dude
she
didn't know
knew.
half the shit
I
that was
think
going
she
on.
knew that she was
The
going to do
big,
that.
all the part of his plan that y'all said. He had a big plan that Pence is going to jail
I mean, he's
tonight.
not a well,
that
I said, wouldn't that be
fucking, you know,
cool?
he's
That
going to
wouldn't
get,
be
he's
cool.
gonna
would it
get
be?
reelected.
How cool would it be,
That would be
though?
badass.
He's not getting reelected. It's game over, dude.
So we just
How
kicked in the
cool.
door, bud.
unfair system. Nevertheless, there is no excuse for the events that took place in these chambers today, and I pray that America never suffers such a dark day again. Though the fate of this vote is clear,
She was not a very good candidate. I don't know why they ran her anyway. She's super wealthy and super bought by China
we
already.
as a body must turn
It's
our
crazy.
focus
She's a
to protecting
communist
the integrity
party.
of our elections
Fucking
and
mess.
restoring
Man,
every
it's
American's
wild.
faith.
I don't know why they ran her. I wouldn't have voted for her either if I was in Georgia, but I wouldn't have damn sure wouldn't have voted for that dude that beat his wife and has child abuse allegations and says white people need to be arrested. Damn sure wouldn't have voted for that guy.
Is the only path to preserving
Look what the
our
choices was. Some super rich bitch that's turncoat and owned by China, or a super racist black dude that hates white people and beats his woman.
Senator Booker, and 2.5 minutes to Senator Kane.
2.5 minutes to Booker and 2.5 minutes to Kane.
Senator from Virginia. I applaud the comments of my colleague from Georgia deeply. My first job after school was in Macon, Georgia, working for a federal judge, Lanier Anderson. And I learned a lot about integrity and a lot about law from him.
Let's fact check Leonard Anderson. Wasn't it Leonard Anderson? Put that in the pipe.
Georgia and
You can
indeed
come back to that.
Virginia and many states. So many people, especially people of
That
color,
Tim
have
Kaine?
been disenfranchised.
Yeah, super fag.
My God.
That's Hillary's dude, wasn't it?
Our late
Yeah.
friend John Lewis, congressman from
Only
Georgia,
time I ever
Oh,
heard
let's
of
invoke
him
the
was-
dead guy.
savagely beaten
Let's
on
invoke the
Bloody
black
Sunday
guy.
just for marching for voting rights. That act of violence inspired this body, the U.S. Senate, to come together in March of 1965 and work to pass, in a bipartisan fashion, the Voting Rights Act. We should be coming together today after acts of violence as a United States
We are
Senate,
all gay homos, and we should be coming together.
all who cast ballots in November. Instead, we're contemplating an unprecedented objection that would be a massive disenfranchisement of American voters. The Georgia result was very clear: a 12,000 vote margin, 2 certifications by Republican officials, 4 separate recounts and canvasses, 7 lawsuits, as in the other states. If we object to results like this, the message is so clear. We are saying to states, no matter how secure and accurate your elections are, we'll gladly overthrow them if we don't like who you voted for.
No matter how secure.
But more importantly, what we'll be saying, really what we'll be doing, is as the body that acted together to guarantee Americans the right to vote, we will become the agent of one of the most massive disenfranchisements in the history of this country. So I urge all of my colleagues.
Nothing in this dude's entire bio mentions him ever living in or working in Georgia like he just claimed. It specifically says the jobs that he did while he was in college,
Mr. Vice President,
and that as soon as he graduated, he met his wife and they
I can only
moved.
think of 2 times in American history that individuals laid siege to our Capitol, stormed our sacred civic spaces, and tried to overrun.
You know what's this kind of makes me realize? Congress is like a total mess and a complete disaster, dude. These characters are like worse than the Addams Family.
The other one was today.
The people who roll up here are like just the disgustingest, like fucking performative weirdos.
They both were waving flags to a sole sovereign, to an individual,
Cory Booker's the king of that, though.
surrendering democratic principles to the cult of personality. One was a monarch in England, and the other were the flags I saw all over our Capitol, including in the hallways and in this room, to a single person named Donald Trump.
Must not have saw the
The
American
difference
flag.
between these 2 times is one was yet another nation in the history of our country that tried to challenge the United States of
Well,
America.
if y'all really wanted Trump to be your dictator, you would have done it for him. No offense, boys.
This hell upon
No doubt.
ourselves.
Let's do it then, Corey.
My colleague from Texas
You want to get real serious? Let's fucking go already, alright? Fucking lay down the line. Draw that line in the sand. Let's go.
Voter fraud. Yes, that is true. They were unprecedented when the president, before the election even happened, said, if I lose this election, then the election was rigged. That's unprecedented.
Really?
It's unprecedented before the night of the voting even counted.
People were saying he's so emotional because he just finished getting anally raped by a squad of dudes.
And it's unprecedented that he's fanning the
That's what I'm
flames of
seeing on
conspiracy theory to create a smokescreen in this nation to cover what he is trying to do, which is undermine our democratic principles. But it's not just that. The shame of this day is it's being aided.
Oh yeah, his voice is like, that's amazing, dude.
Good Americans who are falling prey, who are choosing Trump over truth,
Oh, is this it?
who are surrendering to the passion.
Imagine
Fuck
if
it, Trump.
Imagine if
Insurrection Act right now.
just boom, like get in there, and be like, yo, you can't
Fuck
talk
it.
like this.
Drop
Dude. This
it.
is too much bullshit.
Boom.
Dude. Stealing the election
Arrest
was
them
one
all.
thing, but this
Throw
is
him in
crazy.
jail.
Cory
Prove your
Booker, go
case
through your
after the
crimes.
fact. Fucking kill him. I don't give a fuck. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Shoot him.
Fucking tired of it, man. You gotta do it the right way. Why?
probably not allowed to.
How can you win? How can you win the right way when you're competing against someone who competes the wrong way?
Yet another insurgency of a flag.
Look at Barry Bonds. He did everything the right way, right? And then McGuire and Sosa went off. He got pissed. He knows he's a better player than those guys.
Bonds didn't do it right.
Hold on. Hear
Barry
me out
Bonds
now.
did it
Hear me
right,
out
dude.
now. Help me out
Steroids
now.
too, dog.
Hey, let me finish.
Dude, if you hit 76
okay, and then
home runs, you did it right, bro.
Barry Bonds was doing everything right, and he watched Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa take over his sport and get revered, and he has a huge ego, and he's probably a terrible person, but it was then that he started using steroids. Right then.
Also, they should all use
Everybody
steroids.
else is doing it. They should all use steroids. You're absolutely right. They're there for my fucking competition, my enjoyment. Fucker, I want you to hit 100. I want you to hit 100 home runs. Let's go. Fucking 4 people clap for him.
I yield up to 5 minutes to the Senator from Nebraska, Senator Sass.
Oh, Ben Sass doesn't have.
Oh, God. The guy whose name is literally Ben's ass. That's literally his name.
He's a real piece of shit. He's only calling on. This is what Matt Gaetz was telling everyone was going to happen.
Colleagues, today has been ugly. And when I came to the floor this morning, I planned to talk about the lesson of 1801, because I'm kind of a history nerd. And I wanted to celebrate the glories of the peaceful transition of power across our nation's history.
Yeah, so glorious.
Feels a little naive now to talk about ways that American civics might be something that could unite us and bring us back together. 1801 blew everybody's mind all over the world, by the way. John Adams loses to Thomas Jefferson, and Adams willingly leaves the executive mansion and moves back to Massachusetts, and Jefferson peacefully assumes power. And people all over Europe said, that must be fake news. Those must be bad reports. There's no way any executive would ever willingly lay down power. And yet Adams, in defeat, did something glorious to give all of us a gift. I wanted to celebrate that, and it feels a little bit harder now. This building has been desecrated.
Fuck you, Ben Sass. You're a piece of shit pussy.
I was with octogenarian members of this chamber that needed to have troops and police stabilize them to get down the stairs at a time when a lot of our staffs were panicked and under their desks and not knowing what was going to happen to them. It was ugly today. But you know what? It turns out that
welcome to the real world, motherfucker.
Beauty isn't just permissible. Talking about beauty is obligatory in a time like that. Why? Why would we talk about beauty after the ugliness of today? Because our kids need to know that this isn't what America is. What happened today isn't what America is.
That's such high ground.
This is the 59th presidential election. If the vice president wasn't the chair, and if the president pro tem was, I'd have made some joke that Chuck Grassley has voted in 2/3 of those 59 presidential elections. He's laughing. It's not as good as Hit Dear, Dear Dead, but it's still got a Grassley laugh. I don't think we want to tell the Americans that come after us that this republic is broken, that this is just a banana republic, that our institutions can't be trusted.
Yeah,
we don't want that in this body.
We don't want to tell him that. Then notice he didn't say that's not the case, or it's not true, or none of those things are real or right. Oh, here we go. You're a liar.
Hey, Andrew Cuomo just said he's deploying 1,000 New York National Guard to D.C. for the next 2 weeks.
Good luck, buddy. That's not how it works.
Peaceful transition power is a cornerstone of our democracy, and New York stands ready to help ensure that the will of the American people is safely carried out.
Entrepreneurial effort, and that neighborhoods can't rebuild. Nothing that's broken is so big that we can't fix it. Generations of our forefathers and our foremothers, probably not a word, our ancestors,
forebears, faggot.
Blood to defend the glories of this republic. Why would they do that? Because America is the most exceptional nation in the history of the world, and because the Constitution is the greatest political document that's ever been written. Most governments
the only
in the
honest
past
thing he said
said
tonight.
might makes right, and we saw some of that hooligan nuttery today. Might makes right. No, it doesn't. God gives us rights by nature, and government is just our shared project to secure those rights. America has always been about what we choose to do together.
God, they didn't nerf that fucking DMR. That thing is fucking gnarly.
We have some governmental tasks. We all in this body could do better at those governmental tasks. But the heart of America is not government. The center of America is not Washington, D.C. The center of America is the neighborhoods where 330 million Americans are raising their kids and trying to put food on the table and trying to love their neighbor. That's the center of America. We're not supposed to be the most important people in America. We're supposed to be servant leaders who try to maintain a framework for ordered liberty so that there's a structure that back home where they live, they can get from the silver frame of structure and order to the golden apple at the center, as Washington would have said it, which is the things that they build together. The places where they coach Little League, the places where they invite people to synagogue or church. Sometimes the big things we do together are governmental, like kicking Hitler's ass or like going to the moon. Sometimes there is governmental stuff, but the heart of America is about places where moms and dads are raising kids, and we're supposed to serve them by maintaining order and by rejecting violence. You can't do big things like that if you hate your neighbors. You can't do big things together as Americans if you think other Americans are the enemy. Look, there's a lot of uncertainty about the future. I get it. There's a lot that does need to be rebuilt. But if you're angry, I want to beg you, don't let the screamers who monetize hate have the final word. Don't let nihilists become your drug dealers. There are some who want to burn it all down. We met some of them today, but they aren't going to win. Don't let them be your prophets. Instead, organize, persuade, but most importantly, love your neighbor. Visit the widower down the street who's lonely, no one tell anybody that his wife died and he doesn't have a lot of friends. Shovel somebody's neighbor, or shovel somebody's driveway. You can't hate somebody who just shoveled your driveway. The heart of life is about community and neighborhood, and we're supposed to be servant leaders. The constitutional system is still the greatest order for any government ever, and it's our job to steward it and protect it. Let's remember that today when we vote.
Democratic leader.
Senator Durbin.
Senator from Illinois.
What if Trump makes a Parler account? We all have to go follow him tonight on Parler, and then he gives us instructions of where to attack to find the tunnel. You gotta, like,
declassify everything, Trump. If you get, you are clearly getting fucked here.
What if that came out and then there's tunnels in Raleigh? Would you go there with your gun now to check it out?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, I would go check that shit out, man.
There's these tunnels here. Patriots.
I would be rolling 4 people deep right now to go check that shit out.
And this building was changing. Big changes. They're building a dome on the Capitol. But they were also in the earliest days of a war, and President Lincoln was counseled, stop building the dome. Costs too much money, we can't spend any more time on it. And he said, no, we're going to build that dome and we're going to finish it. That dome and this building will be a symbol of this country that will survive this Civil War and come back strong. So they built the dome. They won the war. Since those days, that dome and this building have been a symbol to this country, a symbol of unity and of hope. Tourists come through here before COVID-19 by the tens of thousands. And if you've ever noticed their tours, they're often shushed. People are saying, show some respect for this building. We know this building in the Rotunda is a place where some of the greatest American heroes of both political parties lie in state, and we go there to honor them. We know this building because we work here. We enact laws here that change America. We gather for State of the Union messages from presidents and honor the people in the gallery. This is a special place. This is a sacred place. Oh my God. But this sacred place was desecrated by a mob today.
I don't get to go.
On our watch. This temple to democracy was defiled by thugs who roamed the halls and sat in that chair, Mr. Vice President, the one that you vacated at 2:15 this afternoon, sat and posed for pictures, those who were roaming around this chamber. What brought this on? Did this mob spring spontaneously from America? No. This mob was invited to come to Washington on this day by this president for one reason, because he knew the Electoral College vote was going to be counted this day. He wanted this mob to disrupt the constitutional process which we are part of. This mob was inspired by a president who cannot accept defeat.
Man, what's he doing right now? He can't tweet, dude.
Whether I'm going too far in what I say, just read
He can tweet from his other account.
with the Secretary of State from Georgia. And listen to this president's wild conspiracy theory.
They did this to real Donald Trump. They didn't do it to POTUS. But that's assuming he has control of the POTUS account, which I doubt he does.
Having no basis in fact.
I bet he's trying like hell to get control of it.
Coaxes, even threatens that Secretary
Because almost no one does.
the votes in any other venue that would be a simple, obvious crime.
Yeah, less than half.
The links he will go to are obvious. Texas senator says to us, well, many people still agree with him, you know, when it gets down to the bottom line. Many people have fallen for this presidential...
Hey, Kelly Loeffler, what's your answer to Representative Doug Collins when he asked you about the $56,000 painting of a communist leader murderer hanging in your mansion? How many billions of dollars in business does your husband conduct with the CCP each year? Asking for a friend.
After 90 different judges, after this president took his case, the best he could put together, to the highest court in the land across the street, where he has personally chosen 3 justices on the Supreme Court, I say to the senator from Texas, you know much more about that court than I do. I don't believe they let that paper that he sent up there even hit the desk before they laughed it out of the court. And that's the best he had to offer. No evidence whatsoever of this rigged election and this fraudulence. The senator from Texas says, we just want to create a little commission. 10 days, we're going to audit all the states, particularly the ones in contention here, and find out what actually occurred. And it really draws its parallel in 1876, Hayes and Tilden. Don't forget what that commission, that so-called political compromise, achieved. It was not just some ordinary governmental commission. It was a commission that killed Reconstruction, that established Jim Crow, that even after a civil war which tore this nation apart, it re-enslaved African Americans. And it was a commission that invited the voter suppression we are still fighting today in America. Let me close by saying this. The vote we're going to have here is a clear choice of whether we are going to feed the beast of ignorance or we are going to tell the truth to the American people. We saw that beast today roaming the halls. Let's not invite it back.
Majority Leader.
President, I yield up to 5 minutes to the Senator from Kansas, Senator Marshall.
Senator from Kansas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Freedom of speech and the freedom to protest are provided in our Constitution. And while I share the same frustrations many Americans have over the presidential election, the violence and mob rule which occurred at the U.S. Capitol today and across the country over the past year are unacceptable, and I condemn them at the highest level. And like all of us in the chamber, I'm thankful for the heroic law enforcement officers who worked feverishly to restore order so that we get back to the electoral certification process. During my 29-year career as an obstetrician and gynecologist, too often I had to sit down with patients and give them a very bad diagnosis. It might have been a young mother of 3 who I delivered all 3 of her babies, now with metastatic breast cancer. Or perhaps another woman with advanced cervical or ovarian cancer, all with a very challenging prognosis. But before I sat down with each one of those patients, I carefully reviewed all their labs, their x-rays, and their pathology to make sure I had the facts straight. But at the end of the day, my final recommendation was always going to be a recommendation from my heart. I want my fellow Kansans and all Americans to know that I've given as much consideration and thought surrounding the issue objecting to a state's electoral college votes as I did considering the treatment plan for a serious health concern. And today's decision, once again, is from my heart. Mr. President, I rise today to restore integrity to our republic. And I rise to join the many of our colleagues who are all concerned for current and future generations. We must restore faith and confidence in one of our republic's most hallowed, patriotic duties, voting. There's no question our U.S. Constitution empowers state legislatures to execute free, legal, and fair elections. Unfortunately, in several states, the clear authority of those state legislatures to determine the rules for voting were usurped by governors, secretaries of states, and activist courts. Our laws and Constitution should always be followed, especially in a time of crisis. I don't rise and do a state's legally obtained electoral college votes. Rather, I rise in hopes of improving the integrity of the ballot to hold states accountable to the time-proven constitutional system of the electoral college. This is why I urge the formation of an electoral commission to give constructive suggestions and recommendations that states can make to make our elections once again safe, free, and fair after a year of jarring irregularities. We must and will have a peaceful transition to power. To all my fellow Americans, I have no doubt that our republic can grow stronger through this difficult day. May God bless this great republic. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield back.
Just sent you something that looks pretty interesting.
Senator from Illinois.
President,
That Drew sent
in
me.
2004,
Oh, yeah.
I packed up my rucksack, laced up my boots, and deployed to Iraq.
Familiar.
Ready to sacrifice whatever was asked of me. All because I loved this nation, willing to sacrifice my life if needed. Because I believe in the sanctity of our electoral system, which had declared George W. Bush
Pretty interesting.
my commander-in-chief. I earned my wounds, proudly fighting in a war I did not support, on the orders of a president I did not vote for. Because I believed in, and I still do believe in, the values of our nation. Because I believe in a government of, by,
So is that
and
guy
for people,
Antifa or is
where
he,
voters,
you know?
voters choose who
But
leads them,
I'm familiar
not
with
the
these
other way around.
things. Here.
I have spent my entire adult life
Send you this
defending
stuff
our
here.
democracy.
But
I
how
never,
easy is it, you know what I'm saying?
thought
For
it
people
would be
to just
necessary to
fucking
defend
throw
it
their
from an
own fucking
attempted
narrative
violent
on shit.
overthrow
Very
in
easy.
our
It's not hard at
nation's
all.
own Capitol
Not hard
building.
at all.
Well, I
Yeah.
refuse to let anyone intent on instigating chaos or inciting violence deter me from carrying out my
I mean,
constitutional
that's the big
duties.
thing I'm seeing. As soon as this shit
You know, when
popped
my
off, was that
Army
that
buddies
dude
and
is,
I raised
oh,
our
he's a
right
fucking,
hands,
that dude,
when the
it's
45,000
Antifa. He's
troops
Antifa
in
actually in
Arizona
there.
raised their right hands
Now they're
and
saying,
swore
he
to
might
protect
not
and
be
defend the
Antifa.
Constitution. We did not
might be.
qualify our oath by saying
Also
that we
might
followed
not be.
orders only when the commander-in-chief was
He
someone
did carry a
who
sign one time that said, Q sent me to a BLM rally.
sworn into office, we didn't utter
No, he
under
didn't.
our breath
I can
that
assure
we
you that.
discharge our duties only when it served our political interests or helped us to avoid the wrath of a petty, insecure, wannabe tin pot dictator on the precipice of losing power and relevance. No, there is no ambiguity here. Joe Biden won the election with a record number of votes. Republican officials nationwide confirmed those results, including in Arizona, as has judge after Trump-appointed judge. Even Trump's attorney general admitted that the United States Department of Justice had not found widespread fraud that would have affected the outcome. Yet still, many of my Republican colleagues are asking us to ignore all of that. With no evidence of their own, they're asking
That guy was
us
an
to
actor
ignore
from Arizona or
court
something,
rulings,
wasn't he?
Republican
Yeah, he's an
election
actor.
Yeah,
officials,
they probably
and
hire him for
even
shit.
worse,
If he has pictures of him
ignore the
at
will
Trump
of the
stuff,
people
it's probably
across
because they
this
set a
vast,
precedent.
great
They set
nation.
that up months before.
By trying to overturn this election, they are placing more
You know they
trust in
put ads in
conspiracy
Craigslist for
theories over the
crisis actors and stuff. That's what he does. He's just a crisis actor from the
more important to them
Arizona region, which is
Well, maybe that's all
notorious
fake
for.
though, and it's all legitimate though. And America's like super cool and legitimate.
elections.
Yeah, that's the alternative.
I know, it's that my troops didn't sign up to defend our democracy in war zones thousands of miles away, only to watch it crumble in these hallowed halls.
She's an Air Force veteran.
I love that they're
involved in intelligence. She was an Air Force intelligence officer.
Yeah, and is she like Chinese or something? What's her deal?
No. I'm talking about the chick that got shot today. She was an Air Force veteran. She was an intelligence officer.
The power of the people has always
married, no
mattered
kids.
more than the people.
Makes you even dumber
Super
to
Trump,
be inside
Super
that
Trump
fucking building.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Being
Agree.
fucking stupid, dude.
Some tea in Boston Harbor.
Anybody
That's
with
what
a
she's
brain
doing,
wants to
especially
go.
the fact that she had children.
Were arrested a century
Why did
ago,
Trump tell people to
and
go
why my
there?
friend John Lewis crossed that bridge in Selma in 1965.
What?
It is why millions spent a Tuesday in November standing in line.
Why would Trump tell people to
braving
go
the
there?
pandemic to make their voices heard.
That's where they were going to be at. It was outside the Capitol during all this. It wasn't his plan or his idea. It started organically, and then he co-opted it. But
whenever something doesn't go his way. But today,
I'm saying to
this
just
chamber have the opportunity to prove that here in this country,
to not
truth
warn people.
matters, that right matters, that the will of the people matters more than the whims of any single powerful individual.
I mean, it's fucking terrible.
I have no
Now this woman's children are gonna grow up. Who knows what her children do now? You know what I'm saying?
To pack for my country.
That, you know what that reminds me? That reminds you of a terrorist kid whose dad was, you know, got caught. He was a terrorist and he fucking got caught in a bombing. Now his kid grows up without his dad thinking, you know, I fucking hate that government. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna do when I grow up. I'm gonna get them back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Double terror.
All that I'm asking of you.
Terror squared.
Just straight up
to reflect
crying.
on the oaths that you have sworn, on the damage done to our union today, and on the sacrifices made by those who've given so
Maybe it's all legitimate, and this really was the whole damage to the union, and the union's going to be totally healed now.
and Marine Corps Air Station Yuma, to the marchers who bent America's moral arc a bit more towards justice with every single step that they took, every bridge that they crossed. Then ask yourself whether the democracy they were willing to believe in, the country that each of us in this chamber has sworn to defend, is worth damaging in order to protect the porcelain ego of a man who treats the Constitution as if it were little more than a yellowing piece of paper. I think we all know the right answer.
Majority Leader.
People clap for Cory Booker.
Mr. President, I yield up to 5 minutes.
Like 4 people did.
Senator Paul.
Senator from Kentucky.
This
I wrote a
is
speech for today.
this is
I was
fucked.
planning to say that I fear the
I like this
chaos
guy too. I
of
did.
establishing a precedent that Congress
Rand
can
Paul closing
overturn
out here?
elections. Boy, was I right. Chaos, anarchy. The violence today was wrong.
Every
and
week y'all think everybody.
I've liked Rand Paul my whole life.
Yeah, we always thought Rand Paul was
He's not his daddy.
It's just like watching
I
everybody.
called him out on Twitter one day.
Oh, yeah.
I told him, I said, hey, the apple falls very far from the tree when it comes to you. You are not your father, and you never
The
will
vote
be.
today is not a protest.
Didn't go very far. I didn't get a response, but yeah, I toasted
He
his
saw
ass.
it though. You know he saw it, dude. Everybody sees
You
everything.
know he
that's bad
saw
about him on
it.
Twitter.
Everybody sees it. That's what I'm living with, bro. I feel like
Certified by a state. It's not about an electoral
You would
commission.
really
It's
know
not
if he
about
blocked you
a
after.
Today
That
for
would be great.
Go outside if you want to
today for a few hours, the Capitol was not controlled by
Overturn
APEC.
a state-certified election. If you vote to overturn these elections, which is the opposite of what states' rights Republicans have always advocated for, this would doom the Electoral College.
Instagram locks Trump's Twitter, locks Trump's account for 24 hours.
Yeah, Facebook too, and Twitter to
Overturn state-certified elections. My oath to the Constitution.
Just like that, APEC turns on the Trumpster.
I can't vote to overturn the verdict of states. Such a vote would be to overturn everything.
He missed the
held
mark,
dear
man.
by those of us who support
All he had
the
to,
rights
he
of
could
states.
have just one little thing of just telling people, you know, don't let them hijack your fucking rally. Changed all of this.
The power of selecting presidential electors to the states.
Nah,
the Electoral College
maybe
is
Trump's just a
without
dumbass,
question
dude.
an inseparable friend to those who believe.
Hey, I've said he does dumb shit. I don't think he had some big grand scheme to lock everybody up.
To overturn the state's election, terrible chaos would
If he did, that shit is done. You can go ahead and throw that shit out the window. That shit is over.
against the Electoral College. If Congress becomes a forum to overturn states' Electoral College selection, it's one thing to be angry. It's
It's another to focus one's anger in constructive ways.
Not one mention of any data whatsoever. What's weird is there hasn't been one person in support of it since it ended.
Our laws and the
Or since
electoral
it restarted.
college in the process.
Right?
I
Look
hope
at
as the nation's anger cools, we can channel that energy into essential electoral reforms at the state level. America's admired around the world for our free elections. We absolutely must fix this mess and restore confidence and integrity to our elections. We must.
Agreed.
Democratic leader. Senator from Virginia.
Shit, man, Mr. Mark. Mr. Mark.
I think like most of us,
I am curious what the fuck that dude's doing right now.
what I was going to talk about
Alright, like, what would you do to, like,
the
know what
work,
Trump's up to right now?
on the work
What
that
would
I'm
you
most
pay?
proud of since I've been here. My good friend Richard Burr.
Not much.
all the
Don't
members
really
of the
matter
intelligence
anymore.
I know, but it'd be just cool to know.
About a multi-year report we did into
Like, maybe he's
foreign
just fucking having
interference in our
KFC and
elections.
he's like, fuck it. I'm out.
Probably our top
Yeah, I think
recommendation,
he.
that 5-volume bipartisan report.
Hopefully that's what you're hoping he's doing, and not preparing to come out and do something even dumber.
I hope he comes out and he just leads an army straight up on Congress right now.
Because when you do so,
What if he just led an army
you often
up on
carry out
Congress
the goals
right
of
now?
our foreign adversaries.
He'd be fucked.
Use caution because whether knowingly or unknowingly, whether that adversary is in Russia or China or Iran, their goals are pretty simple. They want to make it appear to Americans, to folks around the world, to their own people, that there's nothing special about American democracy. I was going to try in a feeble way to maybe reach some of the rhetorical heights of Ben Sass, and I knew I couldn't do that. So instead, I know I'm violating rules here. Today's the day for violating rules. This is a photo that appears today on one of the most prominent German newspapers. You don't need to draw up it. You can draw up photos from any newspaper or any television feed anywhere across the world. And what is this about? It's a thug. Thugs in the halls of this capital, diminishing everything we say we believe in this democracy. When you look at those images, realize those images are priceless for our adversaries. God willing, tonight, in an overwhelming way, we're going to take a small step, a bipartisan way, to start restoring that trust of our people and hopefully the billions of people around the world who believe in that notion of American democracy. Remember, these images will still endure. I yield back.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I yield up 5 minutes to the senator from Missouri, Senator Hawley.
Senator from Missouri.
Mr. President.
What you got for us, Holly?
I want to begin this evening by saying thank you to the men and women of the Capitol Hill Police,
Let this happen.
the National Guardsmen, the Metropolitan Police, and others who came to this
You know how
Capitol,
easy it would
who
be
put their
to
lives
enforce
on the
order
line
and they didn't do
to
that.
protect everyone here working
Same
inside.
exact thing they did at
And I
Charlottesville.
want to thank law enforcement all across this country, in my home state of Missouri and everywhere else, who do that day in and day out. And I just want to acknowledge that when it comes to violence, this has been a terrible year in America this last year. We've seen a lot of violence against law enforcement, and today we saw it here in the capital of the United States. And in this country, in the United States of America, we cannot say emphatically enough, violence is not how you achieve change. Violence is not how you achieve something better. Our Constitution was built and put into place so that there would be, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, no appeal from ballots to bullets, which is what we saw, unfortunately, attempted tonight. There is no place for that in the United States of America. And that's why I submit to my colleagues that what we're doing here tonight is actually very important. Because for those who have concerns about the integrity of our elections, those who have concerns about what
Police are
happened in
beating the
November,
fuck out of people outside
this
right
is
now.
the appropriate means. This is the lawful
What are people
place
doing?
where those objections
Violating
and
curfew.
concerns should be heard. This is the forum that the law provides for. Our laws provide for those concerns to be registered, not through violence, not by appealing from ballots to bullets, but here in this lawful process. And so to those who say that this is just a formality today, an antique ceremony that we've engaged in for a couple of hundred years, I can't say that I agree. I can't say that our precedents suggest that. I actually think it's very vital what we do. The opportunity to be heard, to register objections is very vital because this is the place where those objections are to be heard and dealt with, debated, and finally resolved. In this lawful means, peacefully.
No, we're not going to do that.
Without
We're just going to
violence,
genuinely.
without attacks, without bullets. So, Mr. President, let me just say now briefly, in lieu of speaking about it later, a word about Pennsylvania, which is a state that I have been focused on, objected to, as an example of why people are concerned, millions of Americans concerned about our election integrity. The state of Pennsylvania, quite apart from allegations of any fraud, you have a state constitution that has been interpreted for over a century to say that there is no mail-in balloting permitted except for in very narrow circumstances that's also provided for in the law. And yet, last year, Pennsylvania elected officials passed a whole new law that allows universal mail-in balloting and did it irregardless of what the Pennsylvania Constitution said. And then when Pennsylvania citizens tried to go and be heard on this subject before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, they were dismissed on grounds of procedure, timeliness, in violation of that Supreme Court's own precedent. So the merits of the case have never been heard. The constitutionality of the statute actually has never been defended. I'm not aware of any court that has passed on its constitutionality. Actually, I'm not aware of anybody who's defended the constitutionality. And this was the statute that governed this last election, in which there are over 2.5 million mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania. This is my point, that this is the forum. Pennsylvania Supreme Court hasn't heard the case. There's no other court to go to hear the case in the state. And so this is the appropriate place for these concerns to be raised, which is why I have raised them here today. And I hope that this body will not miss the opportunity to take affirmative action to address the concerns of so many millions of Americans. To say to millions of Americans tonight that violence is never warranted, that violence will not be tolerated, that those who engage in it will be prosecuted, but that this body will act to address the concerns of all Americans across the country. We do need an investigation into irregularities, fraud. We do need a way forward together. We need election security reforms. I bet my friends on the other side of the aisle don't disagree with that. We need to find a way to move forward on that together so that the American people from both parties, all walks of life, can have confidence in their elections and that we can arrange ourselves under the rule of law that we share together.
Sal, what's up?
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
We have to respect
that?
our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt.
Damn.
Great.
God, fuck up.
Democratic leader. Senator from Pennsylvania. Senator from Pennsylvania.
I rise tonight to defend the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. To
Who is
defend
Lionel
more than
Lee?
6.9 million voters who voted in this election, and to condemn in the strongest possible terms this attempt to disenfranchise the voters of Pennsylvania based upon a lie, a falsehood. That same lie sowed the seeds of today's violence and today's lawlessness here in the Capitol. One of my constituents, Susan from the Lehigh Valley, the community of our state where Senator Toomey lives, recently wrote to my office and perhaps said it best. She said, and I quote, "We cannot allow anybody to overturn the legal votes of the citizens of Pennsylvania. This would be the ultimate destruction of our democracy," unquote. Susan had it right. We cannot allow anybody, and she put that word in all caps, to overturn the legal votes of the people of our state. Let me address the allegation regarding the Pennsylvania Constitution and the General Assembly. Somehow that the General Assembly didn't have the authority to enact no-excuse mail-in voting, that process for the people of our state. First, the law in question, Act 77, was passed in 2019 and was implemented without any serious question as to its constitutionality. The law was passed by a Republican-controlled General Assembly, House and Senate. It was only after the 2020 election, when it became clear that President-elect Joe Biden won Pennsylvania by a little more than 80,000 votes, did some Republican politicians in our state decide to challenge the constitutionality of the law. Second, Act 77 is plainly constitutional. My colleagues allege that the state constitution requires in-person voting except under limited circumstances. This is not true. While Pennsylvania lays out specific situations in which absentee voting is required, there is no in-person requirement.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. You had an election.
Requirement in our state's constitution. The Constitution set a floor, not a ceiling, for this type of voting. Second, apart from the argument made by my colleagues, there's bipartisan agreement across our state, at the local, state, and federal level, that our election was fair, secure, and lawful. On Monday, my colleague from Pennsylvania, Senator Toomey, wrote in an op-ed, and I'm quoting, "The evidence is overwhelming that Joe Biden won this election," unquote. There's simply no evidence to justify the outrageous claims of widespread voter fraud or election irregularities suggested by those seeking to overturn the election. 60 cases, court after court, all throughout our state and throughout the country, including the Supreme Court, dealing with this bizarre argument that we know is based upon that lie. In one court, the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, Judge Bevis, appointed by President Trump, he said, quote, "The campaign's claims have no merit," unquote. The United States, he said, has free and fair elections, which are the lifeblood of our democracy. Charges require specific allegations and then proof. We have neither here, unquote. So said Judge Bevis. Finally, Mr. President, a word about those election officials who did such work. These election officials all across our state, Republicans and Democrats, from red counties and blue counties, they did their jobs. They are patriots. And these objections are an attack on these Pennsylvania public servants. I'll give you one example. Republican Commissioner Al Schmidt, I should say, of Philadelphia. He wrote, and I said, and he wrote as I will quote as follows, quote, "There really should not be a disagreement, regardless of party affiliation, when we're talking about counting votes by eligible voters. It's not a very controversial thing, or at least it shouldn't be," unquote. After election day, Commissioner Al Schmidt, his family and his colleagues were subjected to death threats simply because he was trying to do his job with integrity. It calls to mind, Mr. President, that great line from America the Beautiful, "Oh, beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the years." These election officials, like so many of our patriots, we heard from Senator Duckworth, the real patriot. These patriots did their job. Let's support these patriots. Vote against this objection.
Majority Leader. I yield 5 minutes to the Senator from Utah, Senator Romney.
Senator from Utah. Mr. President, today was heartbreaking. And I was shaken to the core as I thought about the people I met in China and Russia and Afghanistan and Iraq and other places who yearn for freedom and who look to this building and these shores as a place of hope. And I saw the images being broadcast around the world, and it breaks my heart. I have 25 grandchildren. Many of them were watching TV.
Fuck you, Mitt Romney, you fucking piece of shit.
Whether their grandpa was okay. I knew I was okay. I must tell you as well, I was proud.
See, he says I knew I was okay. He says that because you know what I mean?
Extraordinary group of people. I'm proud to be a member of the United States Senate and meet with people of integrity as we do here today. Now we gather due to a selfish man's injured pride and the outrage of supporters who he has deliberately misinformed for the past 2 months and stirred to action this very morning. What happened here today was an insurrection incited by the President of the United States. Those who choose to continue to support his dangerous gambit by objecting to the results of a legitimate democratic election will forever be seen as being complicit in an unprecedented attack against our democracy. Fairly or not, they'll be remembered for their role in this shameful episode in American history. That will be their legacy. I salute Senator Langford, Loeffler, and Braun and Daines, and I'm sure others, who in the light of today's outrage have withdrawn their objection. For any who remain insistent on an audit in order to satisfy the many people who believe that the election was stolen, I'd offer this perspective. No congressional audit is ever going to convince these voters, particularly when the president will continue to say that the election was stolen. The best way we could show respect for the voters who are upset is by telling them the truth.
Then why don't you start telling us the truth?
About like one thing, like something. Anything.
Oh, is this Mitt Romney's time? I didn't realize that.
That was Mitt.
No. I knew it was Mitt. But I didn't realize they were all going to suck his dick and he was going to pause for a long-ass perfect clap in the middle.
The truth is that President-elect Biden won the election. President Trump lost. I've had that experience myself. It's no fun. Scores of courts, the president's own attorney general, state election officials, both Republican and Democrat, have reached that unequivocal decision. And in light of today's sad circumstances, I ask my colleague, do we weigh our own political fortunes more heavily than we weigh the strength of our republic, the strength of our democracy, and the cause of freedom? What's the weight of personal acclaim compared to the weight of conscience? Leader McConnell said that the vote today is the most important in his 36 years of public service. Think of that. Authorizing 2 wars, voting on 2 impeachments. He said that not because the vote reveals something about the election, it's because this vote reveals something about us. I urge my colleagues to move forward with completing the electoral count, to refrain from further objections, and to unanimously affirm the legitimacy of the presidential election. Thank you, Mr. President.
Democratic leader.
Senator from New Hampshire, Senator Shaheen.
Senator from New Hampshire.
Mr. President, on January 3rd, I, along with 31 of my colleagues, stood in this chamber and swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. It's both ironic and deeply disappointing that only 3 days after swearing these oaths, some of my colleagues are willfully coming close to breaking this promise. Since 1797, each U.S. president has peacefully handed over power to the next. And that will happen again on January 20th, when Donald Trump, despite the protesters today, the violence today, when Donald Trump leaves the White House at noon and Joe Biden becomes president. And we've heard tonight from both Democrats and Republicans about the importance of the voters speaking in the election, and about the fact that there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud. But this is not just an issue for us here in the United States. This is an issue for nascent democracies around the world who, as Senator Romney said, look to the United States as an example. We
What's up, bro?
are
We're just watching
the
this
shining
shit, you know?
city on the hill.
I figured.
We
Getting
give those
fucked.
struggling under oppression hope
Are y'all
for a
playing
better
at all or no?
I'm playing
Now,
Cold
like so
War. I'm
many
gonna
of
get
us
off
in
soon.
this chamber, I've traveled to
I have been on the whole time
democracies
and haven't
around
played
the
a single
world.
game.
I figured.
Afghanistan, Iraq,
I'm gonna go to
Western
I'm gonna go to
Balkans,
2K.
to Africa, to the country of Georgia.
Shit's crazy,
I went
man.
there with my colleague, Senator Rich. In 2012, we went to Georgia to observe officially, on behalf of the Senate, the election between outgoing President Mikhail Saakashvili and his United National Movement Party, and the challenge by
Doesn't sound like you actually wrote this
Georgian
speech.
Green, which was a newly formed party
That's certain.
supported and funded by billionaire oligarch Bidzina Ivanishvili. It was a battle.
Hope I'm not oversharing with you, Fly. I'm just sharing everything that's funny or interesting that I come across.
Senator Risch and I visited multiple polling places on Election Day, and we agreed with the
Looked at
international
it quickly
assessment
now, but then another
that
game started
that
up.
election was
Oh, my
free
bad.
and
I don't
fair,
think,
and the Georgian Green were the winners. But there was real concern in the country that Saakashvili was going to refuse to give up power. That would lead to violence. It would end the nascent democratic reforms that were happening in that former Soviet republic. And so Senator Risch and I,
Henderson Cooper told the mob to go back to the Olive Garden or the Holiday Inn, wherever it is that you're staying.
to try and talk him out of
That's the elitist that we're looking for, Anderson Cooper, you old silly Vanderbilt, you.
remember very clearly going to his home, and we sat down with him and we pointed out that the hallmark of a democracy, what he had worked so hard for in his 8 years as president of Georgia, the hallmark of that was to turn over power in a peaceful election to the person that the voters chose. Well, President Saakashvili listened to us, and he did leave office peacefully. But it's important that future generations recognize that America, like democracies everywhere, depends on a peaceful transition of power, on believing in what the voters say and in ensuring that happens. Unfortunately, we've heard from some senators today who have been enabling President Trump's willful disregard of the votes of our citizenry, even as they speak out against foreign leaders who ignore their own people. They will fail, and history will remember them. And I hope that future generations will view the actions of some of those folks today as little more than an unfortunate anomaly. Future opportunists may use this ill-fated
Trump
effort to
banned Pence chief of staff from the White House on Wednesday.
long-term stability of our
Today.
republic. But
Yeah.
for the sake of our great
Unbelievable.
country and
That's
America's
impossible.
standing in the world, I ask my colleagues today to fully endorse the results of the free and
Somebody's
fair
phone is going
election and set aside this partisan attempt to subvert the will of
And
the
that's
people.
whose
We
stupid
should be
fucking ringtone
venerating
is that,
the
dude?
peaceful
That's Proof
transition
Stu,
of
right?
power, even if our own preferred
That's not Proof.
candidate
That's a
didn't
Stu
win.
ringtone.
That is, after all, who we
Yeah,
are
Game of
in the
Thrones.
United States of
Game of
America.
Thrones. What's that?
Thank you, Mr. President.
No, you did not just say that.
Mr. President, I yield up to 5 minutes to the Senator from Ohio.
Oh, that,
Senator from Ohio.
yeah, the show.
Mr. Vice President, you have fulfilled your duties as President of the Senate tonight with distinction, and we all appreciate it.
Oh yeah, let's talk about it.
Who's this stinky ass cracker?
Who's that to? Who'd they say that to? Pence?
To Pence, yeah.
I thought about changing my mind and not speaking tonight, given the lateness of the hour, and I know all of my colleagues would have appreciated that greatly. But I felt it was necessary to speak, because I want the American people, particularly my constituents in Ohio, to see that we will not be intimidated. We will will not be disrupted from our work. And here in the citadel of democracy, we will continue to do the work of the people. Mob rule is not going to prevail here. Now, let's face it, we did not reclaim this chamber tonight. Brave and selfless law enforcement officers stood in the breach.
They reclaimed it. They lost it in a savage battle, and they reclaimed it. I don't believe for one second that anybody intended to fucking.
And we are deeply grateful for that, as is the nation.
Unarmed protesters, man. They were walking the halls.
Or it's possible that they
brought
use
guns in there.
5G signals put into their brains. Like, hey, we'll go wonder. We'll go through here. Easily possible.
I tell you, for me, it's not a hard decision. I stand with the Constitution. I stand with what the Constitution makes clear. The people and the states hold the power here, not us. My oath to the Constitution and my reverence for our democratic principles make it easy for me to confirm these state certifications. By the way, I posed this process some 15 years ago when some Democrats chose to object to the electors from my home state of Ohio after the 2004 elections. I opposed it then, and I oppose it now. I said at the time, Congress must not thwart the will of the people. That's what we would be doing. Let's assume for a moment that those who object to the certifications are right. That the Constitution
Let's assume that for one moment.
Intended that a bare majority of members of Congress could circumvent the states that have chosen to certify the popular votes of their own state citizens. I ask the objectors to think about the precedent that would be set if we were to do that. What if the majority in the House and the Senate was of the other party? When a presidential candidate of our party came through a close presidential election? Would you want a Congress controlled by the Democrats to play the role you now intend for us? It is asking Congress to substitute its judgment for the judgment of the voters, and its judgment for the judgment of the states that certified the results.
They have never addressed like one single point that was brought up. Like, it's just such a dog and pony show, like from the outset.
What would be the basis for objecting in this election? Look, I voted for President Trump. I supported him because I believe the Trump administration's policies are better for Ohio and for the country. And I supported the Trump campaign's right to pursue recounts.
Watching these pussies try to sound tough, act like they weren't just cowering in a tunnel wearing plastic bags on their faces is just disgusting.
Yeah, what was with the plastic bags?
I think we all do. And by the way,
that's a picture that tripped me out.
In every presidential election. But it is also true that after 2 months of recounts and legal challenges, not a single state recount changed the result. And of the dozens of lawsuits filed, not one found evidence of fraud or irregularities widespread enough to change the result of the election. This was the finding of numerous Republican-appointed judges and the Trump administration's own Department of Justice. Every state has now weighed in and chosen to certify its electoral slate based on the popular vote as set out in the Constitution.
No, it hasn't.
I understand that many Americans who would never storm this Capitol don't trust the integrity of the 2020 election. Don't think the state should have certified. Don't think we should have accepted the results from the states and are insisting on more transparency and accountability. In the 2016 elections, lest we forget, many Democrats objected to the results and distrusted the election. I challenge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to listen, but also to do our part to try to restore faith in our elections. President, we should all work to improve the integrity of the electoral system and the confidence of the American people in this bedrock of our great democratic republic. Today I'll do my constitutional duty and oppose these efforts to reject the state-certified results. And tomorrow, in the wake of this attack on the Capitol, the pandemic that engulfs us, and other national challenges, let's work together or the people? Yield back.
Democratic leader.
Mr. President, I believe we have 8 minutes left, so I'd like to divide 4 to Senator King and 4 to Senator Powell.
That's correct, leader.
Unbelievable.
Where?
They're gonna be done with this by 10 o'clock.
Well, there's nothing I can do.
They're not even gonna address any of the other states. Only Arizona.
Winston Churchill once said,
Because McConnell and Pelosi had a deal. It was 2 hours and that's it.
extemporaneously, but a 10-minute speech took immense preparation. I don't know what he would have said about a 4-minute speech. We are a 240-year anomaly in world history. We think that what we have here in this country is the way it's always been. It is a very unusual form of government. The normal form of government throughout world history is dictators, kings, czars, pharaohs, warlords, tyrants. And we thought 20 years ago the march of history was toward democracy, but it is in retreat in Hungary and Turkey. Goodness knows in Russia. Democracy, as we have practiced it, is fragile. It's fragile and it rests upon trust. It rests upon trust in facts. It rests upon trust in courts, in public officials, and yes, in elections. I don't sympathize or justify or in any way support, that's putting it mildly, what happened here today, but I understand it. I understand it because I saw those people interviewed today and they said, we're here because this election has been stolen. And the reason they said that is that their leader has been telling them that every day for 2 months. We cannot afford to pull bricks out from the foundation of trust that underlies our entire system. And I agree with Governor Romney that the answer to this problem is to tell people the truth, is to tell them what happened. It's easy to confront your opponents. It's hard to confront your friends. It's hard to tell your supporters something they don't want to hear. But that's our obligation. That's why the word leader is applied to people in jobs like ours. It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be something that we take on as a sacred obligation. And if people believe something that isn't true, it's our obligation to tell them, no, I'm sorry, it isn't. Just as Senator Portman just said, as Mike Lee just said, I'm sorry, we can't do this here. We don't want to do this here. This is a power reserved to the states, not to the Congress. And I agree with the majority leader. I think this is one of the most important votes any of us will ever take. On December 1st, 1862, Abraham Lincoln came to this building. He came to this building in the darkest days of the Civil War.
Talked all this shit
he was
and then
trying
they voted
to
to
awaken
decertify.
the Congress to the crisis that we were facing. And he didn't feel that they were fully and effectively engaged.
Righteous. R-I-T.
Is it worth
U.S.? His speech that day.
Yeah, I'm righteous.
Words that I think have an eerie relevance tonight.
Said that.
Here's what Abraham Lincoln said. Fellow Americans, we cannot escape history. We of this Congress and
They did all have bags on their heads. That's crazy.
In spite of ourselves.
That's gotta be like some sort of hostage, like insinuation thing. That's crazy.
Can spare one or another of us. And here's his final words. The fiery trial through which we pass will light us down in honor or dishonor to the latest generation. fiery trial through which we pass will light us down in honor or dishonor to the latest generation. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. President. The mob violence and attack we saw on our Capitol today should be a wake-up call to each and every one of us of what happens when we fail to come together, not as Democrats and Republicans, but each of us as Americans, to stand up to a president who time and again has shown contempt for our democracy, contempt for our Constitution. Today here on the Capitol, we witnessed people taking down an American flag and putting up a Trump flag. That is not democracy in the United States of America. As every senator who has spoken has mentioned, we have for hundreds of years had a peaceful transfer of power. Nobody likes to lose, and supporters of the losing candidate are always disappointed. What's different this time? We all know what's different this time. We had a president who was a senator from New
As
Jersey
everybody
said
watches
even
this,
before he
Israelis
voted,
airstriking Damascus.
that if he didn't win
Syria.
the election,
Classic.
it was going to be
They're like, at least Damascus will be able to buy a
since then
kosher now.
perpetrated that lie.
It wasn't available before, you know? They got it now.
Criticized very loyal vice president who is presiding right now, urging him to disregard his responsibilities under the Constitution of the United States in order to reinstall Donald Trump as president. The same person who got on the phone to the Secretary of State in Georgia and threatened him to change the results of the election. Mr. President, I read something this week I'd never thought I'd read in a newspaper in the United States of America. It was an op-ed by all the living former secretaries of defense, including Secretaries Rumsfeld, Cheney, and Mattis, warning the country about our tradition of peaceful transfer of power and that it would be inappropriate for the military to take sides. In the United States of America, we talk to the world about how we want to promote democracy and our values, and right here at home, too many are undermining those values. And Mr. President, Donald Trump could not do this alone. He could only do it if he's aided and abetted by individuals who are willing to perpetrate those lies and those conspiracies. And that is why it is so important that we as Democrats and Republicans and senators stand up together. Stand up together and tell the truth. You know, when you go into a court of law like those 60 cases, you're testifying under penalty of perjury. That's very different than here in the House and the Senate. And in all those 60 cases under penalty of perjury, there was no evidence of widespread fraud. So it should be easy for us all together to tell the truth. On January 20th, Joe Biden will be sworn in as the next president of the United States. He has said he wants to bring the country together. He has said he wants to bring Democrats and Republicans together to do some of the pressing business of this country, to defeat this pandemic, to get the economy going again, to face challenging issues of racial and social justice. I hope we will learn from what happened today, the mob attack on this Capitol, the price we pay when we don't stand up for the truth and for democracy. James McHenry, Maryland's delegate to the Constitutional Convention, wrote about a famous exchange in his diaries between Elizabeth Willing Powell and Benjamin Franklin. Wrote, a lady asked Dr. Franklin, well, doctor, what have we got? A republic or a monarchy? A republic, replied Dr. Franklin, if you can keep it. My colleagues, this is a test of whether we're united to keep our republic. I hope we will pass the test together. Thank you.
Majority Leader. Mr. President, I yield up to 5 minutes to the Senator from South Carolina, Senator Graham.
Senator from South Carolina.
Many times my state has been the problem. I love it. It's where I want to die, but no time soon. Tim and I have a good relationship. I love Tim Scott. 1876, South Carolina, Louisiana, and Florida sent 2 slate of electors. They had 2 governments, by the way, and we didn't know what to do. Why did South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana do it? To hold the country hostage to end Reconstruction. It worked. The commission was 8-7. It didn't work. Nobody accepted it. The way it ended is when Hayes did a deal with these 3 states. You give me the electors, I'll kick the Union Army out. The rest is history. It led to Jim Crow. If you're looking for historical guidance, this is not the one to pick. If you're looking for a way to convince people there was no fraud, having a commission chosen by Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, and John Roberts is not going to get you to where you want to go. It ain't going to work. So it's not going to do any good. It's going to delay, and it gives credibility to a dark chapter of our history. That's why I'm not with you. But I will fight to my death for you. You're able to object. You're not doing anything wrong. Other people have objected. I just think it's a uniquely bad idea to delay this election. Trump and I, we've had a hell of a journey. I hate it being this way. Oh my God, I hate it. From my point of view, he's been a consequential president. But today, first thing you'll see.
What's up,
All I
Proof?
can say
What's up, man?
is count me
I'm
out.
up.
Enough is enough.
Playing my career
Trying to
line
be
as a new guy.
But when the Wisconsin
Yeah.
Supreme Court ruled
I
4-3
rank them up, you know.
that they didn't violate the Constitution of Wisconsin, I agree with the 3, but I accept the 4. If Al Gore can accept 5-4 and he's not president, I can accept Wisconsin 4-3. Pennsylvania, it went to the Second Circuit. So much for all the judges being in Trump's pocket. They said, no, you're wrong. I accept the Pennsylvania Second Circuit that Trump's lawsuit wasn't right. Georgia, they said the Secretary of State took the law in his own hands. He changed the election laws unlawfully. A federal judge said, no, I accept the federal judge even though I don't agree with it. Fraud. They say there's 66,000 people in Georgia under 18 voted. How many people believe that? I asked, give me 10, and I had 1. They said 8,000 felons in prison in Arizona voted. Give me 10, hadn't gotten 1. Does that say there's problems in every election? I don't buy this. Enough's enough. We got to end it. Vice President Pence, what they're asking you to do, you won't do because you can't. You talk about interesting times. I associate myself with Rand Paul. How many times will you hear that? The mob has done something nobody else could do to get me and Rand to agree. Rand is right. If you're a conservative, this is the most offensive concept in the world, that a single person could disenfranchise 155 million people. The President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and the House of Representatives, open all certificates, and the votes shall then be counted. The person having the greatest number of votes for president shall be president. Where in there does it say Mike can say, I don't like the results? I want to send them back to the states. I believe there was fraud. To the conservatives who believe in the Constitution, now's your chance to stand up and be counted. Originalism, count me in. It means what it says. So, Mike, Mr. Vice President, just hang in there. They said we can count on Mike. All of us can count on the Vice President. you're going to do the right thing. You're going to do the constitutional thing. You got a son who flies F-35s. You got a son-in-law who flies F-18s. They're out there flying so that we can get it right here. There are people dying, my good friend from Illinois, to make sure we have a chance to argue among ourselves. And when it's over, it is over. It is over. The final thing, Joe Biden. I've traveled the world with Joe. I hoped he lost. I prayed he would lose. He won. He's a legitimate president of the United States. I cannot convince people, certain groups, by my words, but I will tell you by my actions, that maybe I, above all others in this body, need to say this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are lawfully elected and will become the president and the vice president of the United States on January the 20th.
Majority Leader. Mr. President, I yield back the balance of our time.
All time has expired. Question is, shall the objections submitted by the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Gosar, and the senator from Texas, Mr. Cruz, and others be sustained? Is there a second? There is. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Booker. Mr. Bozeman. Mr. Braun. Mr. Brown. Mr. Burr. Ms. Cantwell. Mrs. Capito. Mr. Carter. Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey. Mr. Cassidy. Ms. Collins. Mr. Coons.
Pence literally twiddles
Mr.
his thumb.
Cornyn.
Who does it?
Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Cotton.
Hey boys, I gotta go.
Mr. Kramer.
I'll catch you.
Later, dude.
Good
Bro.
luck in this
Later.
afterworld.
Mr. Cramo.
The end game
Later,
of
buddy.
America.
Mr. Cruz.
You've hit the max level, and now you're going to America's end game.
Mr. Daines.